Lieutenant Marcus Hale had faced plasma storms, pirates, and the emptiness of deep space. But nothing prepared him for the silence of an alien throne room. He stood alone on a long silver floor that reflected every movement like a mirror. Tall pillars glowed with faint blue light, stretching toward a ceiling so high it vanished into mist. Dozens of alien nobles lined both sides of the grand hall, their robes shimmering with strange colors that shifted like oil on water. All eyes were fixed on the single human standing at the center. On him. Marcus adjusted the collar of his dark blue uniform, trying to keep his posture straight. He was here as a representative of Earth, not a soldier on the front lines. That's what he told himself, but his instincts whispered otherwise. Every set of alien eyes felt like a weapon pointed at him. The Tirval Empire, as he had learned, was the oldest and most powerful civilization in this part of the galaxy. For 10,000 years they ruled with elegance, order, and arrogance. Humanity was new, a young race still climbing the ladder of the stars. The Empire barely acknowledged Earth's existence until recently. Now, after a few trade deals and a tense peace treaty, Earth had sent him as their first diplomatic envoy. Marcus had trained for weeks, studying Tirval customs and language. He thought he was ready, but as the enormous golden doors opened and the royal family entered, he realized nothing could have prepared him for this. The Emperor and Empress of Tirval walked side by side. Their presence was commanding, tall, graceful with pale metallic skin and eyes that glowed faintly like molten silver. The crowd bowed low and Marcus followed their lead a moment late, hoping nobody noticed. Behind them came their daughter, Princess Alira. Marcus had seen her image in briefings, but in person, she was different. She looked younger than her parents, but there was strength in her eyes, not the softness of pampered royalty. Her hair was silver white and flowed down to her waist, catching the light like threads of crystal. A small golden crest rested above her brow, the sign of royal blood. The princess moved with calm confidence, her steps light but sure. Yet when her gaze swept across the hall, there was something restless in it, as if she was searching for something that wasn't there. The Emperor raised his hand, and the hall fell silent. Today, his voice echoed deep and powerful, our daughter chooses a suitor worthy to stand beside her and one day rule the Empire. Cheers and whispers rippled through the nobles. One by one, alien lords and warriors stepped forward, tall figures with glowing armor and polished wings, each representing ancient houses that had served the throne for centuries. Marcus stood at the back, feeling completely out of place. He wasn't a suitor. He wasn't even invited to this event. He was only supposed to witness it as a symbol of goodwill from Earth. Yet here he was, standing in the same room as people who could end planets with a word. Each suitor presented a gift to the princess, jewels from collapsing stars, weapons made from pure energy, rare living creatures that shimmered with light. Alira thanked each one politely, but her expression never changed. Calm, distant, bored. Marcus kept his face neutral, though inside he felt uneasy. The princess didn't seem interested in any of them. Her gaze wandered again, scanning the crowd, and then it stopped. On him. For a second, Marcus thought she was looking past him. He glanced over his shoulder. No one was there. Her eyes were locked on his. A spark flickered in them. Curiosity? Amusement? He couldn't tell. But she didn't look away. The Empress noticed her daughter's distraction and spoke softly. My child, you must choose wisely. Alira's lips curved slightly, as if she had made up her mind. She stepped forward. Every noble turned their head to watch, and then, in a clear and confident voice that echoed through the entire chamber, she raised her hand and pointed directly at Marcus. I want him. The hall went completely silent. Marcus froze. He thought he had misheard her. But the echo of her words repeated in his mind like thunder. Every eye turned toward him. Hundreds of glowing alien eyes staring in disbelief. The Emperor's expression hardened. Alira, he said slowly, you speak in jest. I do not, she replied, still pointing. I choose him. Murmurs erupted instantly. The nobles were whispering in shock, their voices sharp with outrage. A human, an unenhanced primitive? This is an insult to the Empire. Marcus stood motionless. His instincts told him to salute, speak, do something. But his body refused to move. He could only stare at the alien princess who had just turned his life upside down with 5 words. The Emperor rose from his throne, the air around him vibrating with power. You choose an outsider, one from a species that has barely left its cradle? You would shame your bloodline for this? The Empress, however, said nothing. Her eyes studied Marcus with quiet calculation. Alira met her father's gaze without flinching. You told me to choose one who was not afraid to stand alone before the Empire. I have chosen. Marcus finally found his voice. Your Majesty, he said carefully, his accent thick in the alien tongue. There must be some misunderstanding. I'm only here as a guest. The Emperor turned his gaze on Marcus, and the air felt heavier, almost electric. Human, he said, his voice sharp as steel. Did you encourage this madness? No, sir, Marcus answered quickly. I didn't even— Enough, the Emperor snapped. He looked at the guards. Detain him. 2 guards moved instantly. They were twice his size, armored from head to toe, weapons humming with energy. Marcus raised his hands in surrender. No point resisting. He wasn't stupid. These were not people you could fight and win against. But before the guards reached him, the princess stepped in front of them. Touch him, she said coldly, and I will never forgive you. The entire hall went still again. Even the Emperor hesitated. Alira, the Empress began, but the princess cut her off. I have chosen according to the right. The choice cannot be denied. Marcus couldn't believe what he was hearing. He, a simple human officer, had just been declared the royal choice of an alien heiress, and the entire empire was watching. The Emperor's voice dropped low, dangerous. You bring chaos to my court, daughter. The right was never meant for a creature of another world. But it was never forbidden, Alira replied calmly. Our laws say only that the heir must choose one who stands apart. And he does. The Emperor turned away, his expression unreadable. After a long silence, he said, Then so be it. The human will remain in the palace until the council decides his fate. Guards surrounded Marcus, but this time they didn't touch him. They only gestured for him to follow. He glanced once at the princess. She gave him a faint, reassuring smile, the first sign of emotion he'd seen from her all day. As they led him through the long corridors of the palace, Marcus's mind raced. This had to be some kind of political trap. Maybe the princess was using him to provoke her parents or test the nobles. Maybe she wanted to make a point about freedom or rebellion. Whatever it was, he was stuck in the middle of it. He was taken to a luxurious chamber, more like a golden cage than a room. When the guards left, the door sealed with a soft hum. He sat down heavily on the edge of the bed, rubbing his temples. What the hell just happened? He muttered. A soft sound made him look up. The door opened and Princess Alira stepped inside. For the first time, she looked less like a symbol and more like a person. Her eyes studied him with genuine curiosity. You are not afraid, she said quietly. Marcus gave a tired laugh. I'm terrified, actually. I just don't show it. She tilted her head slightly. Good, fear is normal. Only fools feel none, he frowned. Why me? You could have chosen anyone. People stronger, richer, smarter. Alira walked closer, her steps soft against the floor. Because they are all the same. Born into power, certain of victory. You were not, yet you stood tall before them. I was just trying not to embarrass my planet, Marcus said dryly. And yet you did not bow, she replied. That is what caught my eye. He looked at her, trying to read her expression. You've just started a diplomatic disaster between your world and mine. Perhaps, she said with a small smile. Or perhaps I've started something greater. Before he could ask what she meant, the sound of armored boots echoed outside the door. A guard's voice called, Princess, the Emperor demands your presence. She nodded and turned to leave. But at the doorway, she paused and looked back at Marcus. Do not fear, human. I will make sure no harm comes to you. The door closed behind her, leaving Marcus alone again in the silent, glowing room. He leaned back against the wall, exhaling slowly. He had come to this planet as a diplomat. Now he was the center of an interstellar scandal. Somewhere deep inside, a quiet voice said, This is only the beginning. When Marcus woke up the next morning, the alien sun was already shining through the glass walls of his room. The light had a soft golden tone, warmer than Earth's sunlight. The palace city stretched beyond the balcony, a forest of crystal towers, floating bridges and ships gliding silently through the air. For a moment, he almost forgot he was a prisoner. Then the door opened and two tall guards stepped in. Their armor gleamed silver blue and their faces were hidden behind curved helmets. One of them spoke in a cold voice. "Human, the Emperor summons you to the council hall. You will follow." Marcus nodded and stood up. "Lead the way." They escorted him through long corridors lined with glowing walls. Every alien he passed stared at him like he didn't belong there, which, of course, he didn't. He caught bits of whispering in the Tirval language. Words like primitive, unworthy, and foolish princess. He ignored them. Soldiers learn early that ignoring insults saves energy. Finally, they entered the council hall, a massive circular chamber filled with alien nobles, all wearing shimmering robes and jeweled insignias. The Emperor sat on a high seat, the Empress beside him. Princess Heiress stood slightly behind them, calm and silent. When Marcus was brought to the center of the room, the whispers stopped. The Emperor leaned forward, his silver eyes cold as metal. "Human," he began. "Your presence in this hall is an insult. My daughter's reckless declaration has thrown the Empire into chaos. The Council demands to know what you intend." Marcus looked around. Every noble eye burned with suspicion or hatred. He swallowed, then spoke slowly, careful with every word. "Your Majesty, I never asked for this. I don't want to insult your laws. I came here to represent Earth with respect. And yet," one noble hissed, "you stand in the place of those born to greatness." Marcus met his glare. "I didn't stand here by choice." That earned a few murmurs. The Emperor's voice rose again. "You were chosen in front of the Empire. That cannot be undone without dishonor. But neither can you be accepted as you are, a creature of a lesser world." The Empress finally spoke. Her tone was soft, but her words were sharp. "There is one way to resolve this without war or shame." All heads turned toward her. "The human will undergo the trials of worth," she said. "If he fails, the rite is void and the matter ends. If he succeeds—" She paused, her eyes flicking toward Marcus. "Then perhaps there is something more to this species of his." A wave of approval spread through the nobles. Some smirked. They already imagined him failing miserably. Marcus clenched his jaw. "Trials of worth?" The Empress nodded. "They are ancient tests of strength, intelligence, and courage. No outsider has ever completed them. You will be given the chance to prove yourself, or fall trying." Alira took a step forward. "Mother, that is not fair." The Emperor raised a hand to silence her. "So it shall be. The human will begin the first trial at dawn." The guards grabbed Marcus by the arms, but he pulled free and looked straight at the Emperor. "I'll do your trials," he said evenly. "Not because I want your throne or your approval, but because I won't let anyone call my people weak." For a brief second, something flickered in the Emperor's eyes. Respect, perhaps, or surprise. But it vanished quickly. "Then so be it," he said. "Take him." Marcus spent the next few hours in a small chamber overlooking the palace courtyard. He wasn't chained, but the door was guarded. A tray of food sat untouched beside him. Alien fruits, glowing liquids, and something that looked like roasted metal. He decided to skip breakfast. As he stared out at the alien city, the door slid open again. Princess Alira entered quietly, wearing a simple silver robe instead of royal armor. She looked tired, but her gaze was steady. "You shouldn't have agreed to this," she said softly. Marcus gave a dry smile. "You gave me much choice?" Her expression didn't change. "They mean to humiliate you. The trials are designed to break warriors twice your strength. Then I'll just have to disappoint them." She blinked, surprised at his tone. "You really think you can win?" Marcus looked at his reflection in the glass. "No idea, but I've never believed in losing before trying." A faint smile touched her lips. "You humans are strange," he shrugged. "We get that a lot." She stepped closer. "My father is proud but not cruel. If you survive the first trial, he might begin to see you differently." "Survive?" Marcus repeated. "That's a comforting word." "Do not die," she said seriously. "That would make me very angry." He almost laughed. "I'll do my best, Princess." Before leaving, she said something that lingered with him long after she was gone. "They call us an old empire human. Perhaps it is time someone reminds us what courage looks like." At dawn, the trials began. The courtyard had been transformed into an enormous arena. Thousands of Tirval citizens filled the viewing platforms, cheering and shouting as Marcus was led inside. The Emperor, Empress, and Princess sat in the royal balcony above. A deep voice announced the challenge. Trial 1, the Ascent of Blades. Marcus looked up, and his breath caught. Towering above him was a narrow pillar covered in thousands of razor-sharp metal shards, spinning slowly in the air. At the top, about 100 meters high, was a glowing orb, the symbol of completion. "Retrieve the orb," the voice declared. "Climb with your strength alone. No tools, no armor." The crowd laughed. Even the guards shook their heads. Marcus sighed. Of course it's a death trap. He took a deep breath, cracked his knuckles, and started climbing. The metal was cold and slick. The first few meters were easy, until the blades began to shift, slicing small cuts into his hands. He gritted his teeth and kept moving. Blood dripped down his arms, but he ignored it. His muscles screamed, his breathing quickened. Every time he paused, the pillar rotated faster, trying to throw him off. From the balcony, nobles whispered and chuckled. "He'll fall soon. Look, he's slowing down." But Marcus didn't stop. He moved like a machine, using every trick from survival training, keeping his weight balanced, using the flat sides of his boots, never gripping too tightly. Halfway up, a blade caught his sleeve, tearing it open and slicing his arm. He almost lost his grip. For a terrifying moment, he dangled over open air. He looked down. The ground was a blur. The crowd's laughter echoed below. Then he looked up at the glowing orb. And he thought of Earth, blue oceans, green forests, people who still believed humanity could rise higher. "Not today," he muttered, and climbed again. The last few meters felt endless. His hands were raw, his legs shaking. But inch by inch, he reached the top and slammed his bleeding palm onto the orb. It pulsed with light. The crowd went silent. Marcus pulled himself over the edge, gasping for breath. The orb's light spread down the pillar, marking his victory. The announcer's voice trembled slightly. "The first trial is complete." Cheers erupted from the lower crowds, not nobles but common citizens who loved seeing something unexpected. Even some guards clapped. In the royal balcony, the emperor sat still, expression unreadable. The empress's lips curved faintly. Amusement or approval, it was hard to tell. Princess Heiress, however, was smiling openly. When Marcus was escorted back to his chamber, she visited him again. His hands were bandaged and his face was pale, but he still managed to grin. "I told you I wouldn't die," he said. "You should be resting," she said, crossing her arms. "Can't sleep." "The floor is too soft." She rolled her eyes in an oddly human gesture. "The next trial will not be physical. It will test your mind." "Good," Marcus said. "At least my hands get a break." Her gaze softened. "The others mock you, but they watched you climb higher than any of them would dare." "My father noticed that," Marcus shrugged. "If your father wanted to scare me, he'll have to try harder." She tilted her head. "You talk to me differently than others do." "I talk to everyone the same," he said simply. "Royalty or not." Heiress studied him for a moment. "Maybe that's why I chose you." Marcus blinked. "Still haven't figured that out." "Neither have I," she said quietly and turned to leave. That night, Marcus stood by the window again, staring at the alien sky. His bandaged hands ached, but his spirit burned brighter than ever. He had climbed their impossible tower. He had silenced their laughter. And tomorrow, he would face whatever came next. Because deep down, Marcus Hale knew one thing. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for humanity, to prove that even in a galaxy of gods, humans could still stand tall. The morning air was crisp in the palace courtyard, but Marcus could feel a deeper tension than yesterday. He had survived the first trial, climbing the ascent of blades. But the nobles whispered behind his back, clearly hoping he would fail next. Marcus ignored them. He wasn't a fighter for glory. He was a soldier for humanity, and the difference mattered. Princess Heiress appeared at his chamber doorway, her silver-white hair catching the sunlight. She wore a lighter robe than yesterday, signifying she would observe, not interfere. "Good morning, human," she said calmly. "I hope your hands have healed." Marcus flexed his bandaged fingers. "They'll manage." "Not broken yet," she smiled faintly. "The next trial will test your mind. You will be placed in the labyrinth of shadows." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Shadows? Sounds cozy." Heiress's eyes flickered with amusement. "The labyrinth is not literal. It is a series of puzzles and illusions. Many Tirval nobles with centuries of training failed this trial. You will need wits, speed, and careful observation to survive." "I'm ready," Marcus said, though a flicker of doubt ran through him. I don't know Tyrval tricks, but I can adapt. Alira's gaze softened. Good, that is why I chose you. Humans. They survive differently than we do. The labyrinth was located beneath the palace, a vast underground chamber of twisting corridors and shifting walls. Holographic lights flashed along the ceiling, casting illusions that flickered between reality and trickery. Marcus took a deep breath as he stepped inside. The first corridor split into 3 paths, each shimmering differently. Ancient alien runes glowed faintly on the walls. Marcus paused, remembering the brief notes he had studied on Tyrval logic puzzles. Look for patterns, he muttered to himself. He chose the left path. Instantly, the floor shifted beneath his feet and a low rumbling echoed. Panels dropped from the ceiling, forming moving walls that threatened to crush him. He jumped back just in time and sprinted forward, narrowly avoiding the closing panels. Another corridor opened ahead, filled with floating spheres of light. Some emitted warmth, others radiated cold. A voice echoed, "Choose the spheres wisely. One step in the wrong path and you fail." Marcus studied the spheres. His instinct told him to trust what felt familiar. He picked one that radiated warmth and stepped forward. Immediately a passage opened and the cold spheres sank into the floor harmlessly. As he moved deeper, illusions grew stronger. He saw duplicates of himself walking alongside him, some waving, some pointing to the wrong paths. His heart raced. "Don't trust appearances," he muttered. "Trust observation," he watched carefully. The duplicates moved slightly differently than him. One corridor seemed to shift only when he blinked. Using careful timing, he maneuvered through the illusions, one step at a time. Hours seemed to pass, though the lighting suggested mere minutes. Marcus's mind worked overtime, combining intuition, observation, and logic. His muscles ached, but he refused to slow down. Finally, he reached a room with a single pedestal. On it rested a small crystal orb glowing faintly. Marcus approached cautiously. A holographic voice filled the room. "Answer this riddle, human, and the trial will end. Fail, and you will be trapped forever in the labyrinth." Marcus swallowed. He had never been good with riddles, but he had faced life or death situations before. He focused. The voice continued. "I am not alive, yet I grow. I have no lungs, yet I need air. I have no mouth, yet I can die. What am I?" Marcus thought for a moment. "Not alive. Grows, needs air. Can die. Fire." "Correct," the voice said, and the room shifted. Walls slid open, revealing a corridor leading back to the surface. Marcus exhaled deeply. When he emerged, the crowd in the courtyard had grown larger. Citizens who had watched the previous trial cheered. Nobles, however, looked grim. Marcus's success had clearly shaken their expectations. Princess Alira stood in the balcony above, smiling softly. Marcus met her gaze and nodded. She returned it with a subtle tilt of her head, a silent gesture of approval, but there was no time to celebrate. The third trial awaited, a test of courage and teamwork. The courtyard had been transformed once again. This time, large mechanical beasts patrolled the area, part animal, part machine, built to simulate dangerous battlefield conditions. Marcus's task was simple in words: lead a team of Tyrval soldiers through the beasts without loss of life. "Humans lead differently," Alira had said earlier. "You will see." Marcus studied the soldiers. They were taller, stronger, and faster than him. Most had centuries of training. They looked at him skeptically. "Follow my lead," he said calmly. "And don't panic," the beast charged. Metal claws struck the ground, sparks flying. Some soldiers hesitated. Marcus ran forward, using his size and agility to dodge attacks, signaling the soldiers when to move, when to hide, when to push forward. A machine leapt at a soldier from above. Marcus grabbed the soldier's arm and pulled him to safety, barely avoiding the crushing claws. The other soldiers followed his lead, realizing quickly that his instincts and decisions, not brute strength, were keeping them alive. By the time they reached the exit, several soldiers were exhausted, but no one was harmed. The crowd erupted, shocked that a human had led a team of elite Tyrval warriors successfully. The Emperor remained silent, his face unreadable. But the Empress leaned slightly forward, eyes shining. Marcus had not only survived, but he had earned respect, even if grudgingly, from the Empire's finest. Later that evening, Marcus returned to his chamber, exhausted. Alira was waiting. "You did not just survive," she said. "You led." I had no choice, Marcus said, trying to catch his breath. Either we all make it or none of us do, she smiled faintly. That is rare. Most Tierval soldiers would have left the weak behind. Marcus shrugged. We humans, we survive because we adapt, that's all. Alira's expression softened. Perhaps that is why I chose you. Marcus looked at her, meeting her gaze fully. I don't know why you chose me, but I won't let you regret it. Her eyes flickered with something unreadable. The next trial will be harder. They are called the trials of fire. Not literal fire, but challenges that will test your resolve under pressure. Marcus nodded. Then I guess I'll have to survive again. You will, she said softly. Because humans, they fight differently than we expect, and you remind us of that. That night Marcus couldn't sleep. His body ached and his mind replayed every moment of the day. He had climbed towers, solved impossible illusions, and led elite soldiers successfully. He had proven something, not just to the Tierval but to himself. Humanity was small in the galaxy, young and underestimated. But Marcus realized something vital. Humans were dangerous not because of technology or numbers, but because of their heart, their mind, and their refusal to quit. Alira's words echoed in his mind. You remind us what courage looks like. And Marcus knew this was only the beginning. The Empire had seen a human stand tall against impossible odds. The nobles had seen their expectations shattered. And the heiress, Princess Alira, had seen the first glimpse of the human she had chosen. Tomorrow would bring the next trial, and Marcus Hale would face it the way he faced everything else, with courage, adaptability, and the stubborn pride of humanity. The next morning, Marcus woke to a strange silence in the palace. The usual hum of hovering platforms and soft mechanical sounds was gone. Even the sunlight streaming through the windows felt heavier, as if the palace itself was watching him. A single guard entered. Human, the Emperor requests your presence in the Hall of Judgment. Marcus rose, rubbing his tired shoulders. Of course, he said, trying to hide the fatigue from 3 grueling trials. He had survived the ascent of blades, solved the labyrinth of shadows, and led elite soldiers through the mechanical beasts. Each success had shocked the Empire and earned him cautious respect. But now he faced the Emperor himself. The Hall of Judgment was massive, more ornate than the Council Hall, with walls carved from shimmering crystal and floors that reflected the light like water. The Emperor's throne sat at the far end, tall and imposing. Marcus felt the weight of the room as soon as he stepped inside. Human, the Emperor began, his voice low and resonant. You have survived trials no outsider could endure, and yet the Council is still divided. Many say your successes are mere luck. Some call your survival an insult to the Empire. Others begin to wonder. Marcus swallowed. Your Majesty, I do not seek to insult anyone. I only do what must be done. The Emperor leaned forward slightly, eyes like molten silver. Indeed, that is your nature. Stubborn, fearless, clever. Qualities that are rare in your species. Marcus felt a flicker of pride but said nothing. He had learned early in his life that humans earn respect through action, not words. The Emperor's gaze softened briefly. You remind me of one of my greatest generals. He too was reckless, brave, and surprisingly human in his thinking. He failed once, yet changed the course of a war. You may have the same potential. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Potential for what? To lead, to influence, to challenge our Empire's traditions. To decide whether a human may stand beside the Tierval princess not just as a guest, but as something more. The words hung heavy in the air. Marcus realized he was being tested not just physically, not just mentally, but politically. His actions now could change the balance of the Empire itself. Your choice now, the Emperor continued, is simple. Walk away, return to your planet, live as a human, unburdened by alien politics, respected by your people for surviving these trials. Or stay and face the final challenge. Marcus's jaw tightened. And the final challenge is? A test of leadership, of loyalty, of courage. You will lead an expedition beyond the Empire's borders, against a threat that jeopardizes both our species and your own. Succeed and you will prove humanity worthy of respect. Fail and he let the threat hang. You will return no more. Marcus took a deep breath. He had been through impossible trials, survived threats both physical and psychological, and now he faced a mission where not only his life, but the lives of many depended on him. I will stay, he said firmly, and I will do this mission. The Emperor's eyes narrowed slightly, then lifted in a rare gesture of approval. So be it. The Council will watch closely, and Princess Alira will accompany you as observer. She is invested in your outcome. Marcus blinked. Invested in me? Do not test me, human, the Emperor said mildly. You will understand in time. Preparations for the expedition took hours. Marcus was introduced to a small team, both human and Tyrval soldiers. Some were skeptical, others openly hostile. A few whispered among themselves, doubting a human could lead effectively. Marcus studied them carefully. Leadership was not about fear or strength alone. It was about earning trust. And trust, he knew, was never given. It was earned through action and consistency. He began organizing the team with simple, clear instructions. Form ranks here. Watch each other's flanks. If a machine malfunctions, signal immediately. Stay calm, move as one. We survive together. The Tyrval soldiers exchanged glances. His style was different from their centuries of rigid training, but it made sense. Marcus's calm and decisive approach gave them confidence. Slowly, the tension in the group lessened. Princess Alira watched silently from the observation deck. She didn't intervene, but her eyes followed every move Marcus made. For the first time, she seemed genuinely curious. Not about him as a human, but about how he thought, how he led, and how he inspired others. The expedition ship left the palace's orbit, gliding through the alien sky. Marcus sat in the command chair, reviewing maps and strategies with the team. The threat was real. A rogue fleet of warships from the Outer Rim had begun attacking trade routes and colonies, and their technology was unpredictable, their tactics aggressive. Humans are untested in large-scale space battles, one Tyrval soldier muttered. Marcus looked at him calmly. Maybe, but humans improvise. We adapt, and when everyone else fails, we find a way to win. The soldiers exchanged doubtful looks, but there was respect in their eyes now. Marcus's reputation had begun to precede him. Alira joined him at the command console, her eyes studying the holographic fleet display. Your species is reckless, she said softly, and yours is cautious, Marcus replied. Together we might just balance each other. She raised an eyebrow, smiling faintly. Perhaps. But balance is fragile. One mistake. I won't make mistakes, he said firmly. Her gaze lingered on him, studying his confidence, his determination, the human stubbornness that had drawn her to him. We'll see, she said quietly, almost to herself. The first encounter with the rogue fleet was sudden. Sensors picked up dozens of enemy ships approaching at high speed. Marcus quickly assessed the situation. Form a defensive perimeter, he ordered. Keep the fleet in a tight formation. Use our faster ships to flank. Fire only when necessary. Protect civilians at all costs. The Tyrval officers looked at him, stunned. Their training emphasized overwhelming firepower and direct assault. Marcus's strategy was unusual. Measured, cautious, and adaptive. The battle began. Enemy ships fired plasma bolts that lit the dark void like shooting stars. Marcus's fleet dodged and weaved, using evasive maneuvers he had calculated in seconds. When an enemy ship broke formation and targeted a civilian transport, Marcus acted instantly. Divert all energy to shields. Engage them on my mark. He executed the maneuver perfectly, saving the transport. The Tyrval soldiers began to realize Marcus's brilliance, not from raw power but from quick thinking, human instinct, and courage. Hours passed. The fleet fought hard, and the humans and Tyrval worked together seamlessly under Marcus's command. By nightfall, the rogue fleet was defeated, retreating into the Outer Rim. Back on the command deck, the crew cheered quietly. Marcus felt exhaustion creep into his bones, but a quiet satisfaction filled him. He had led an alien fleet, earned the trust of their soldiers, and protected innocent lives, all as a human. Alira approached him, her silver hair glowing softly in the ship's light. You exceeded expectations, she said. Marcus shook his head. I just did what needed to be done. You don't survive as a human by thinking you're weaker than everyone else. You survive by being smarter, faster, and braver when it counts. She studied him for a long moment. Your father, she said softly. The Emperor does not often recognize brilliance. But you have forced him to see it. Marcus gave a small, tired smile. I didn't do it to impress him. I did it because it had to be done. That's what humans do. She nodded slowly. I think I chose well. Marcus looked at her, surprised. You still don't know why you chose me, do you? Alira smiled faintly. Perhaps I do now. When the fleet returned to Tyrval space, the Emperor himself met them at the palace docks. Marcus and the team disembarked, weary but triumphant. The Emperor's eyes lingered on Marcus longer than expected. You have proven yourself, the Emperor said, not only in trials but in action. You have led where many would fail. You have reminded us that courage and leadership are not the sole domain of any one species. Marcus bowed. Thank you, Your Majesty. I did what I had to do, for the Empire and for humanity. The Emperor studied him silently, then inclined his head in rare approval. Even the nobles who had doubted him shifted in their seats, murmuring in surprise. Alira stepped forward, her hand brushing lightly against Marcus's arm. You have shown them all what I saw from the beginning. Marcus looked at her, fatigue and pride mixing in his chest. And what did you see? Her silver eyes met his, steady and unwavering. A human who refuses to bow to fear. That is all one needs to be worthy. Marcus smiled faintly, feeling a strange warmth he had never expected in the heart of an alien empire. Humanity had taken its first true step into a galaxy that had doubted it. The palace was alive with anticipation. Word of Marcus Hale's triumph had spread like fire across the Tyrval Empire. Citizens gathered along the floating walkways, whispering tales of the human who had survived trials no alien ever had. Even the nobles who had scoffed at the beginning were beginning to reconsider their prejudices. Inside the council hall, tension was thick. The Emperor sat on his golden throne, the Empress beside him, while Princess Alira stood behind them. Marcus entered the hall, his uniform worn and bandaged from the trials and battle, but his eyes held the same calm determination they always did. Human, the Emperor said, voice deep and commanding. You have proven yourself worthy in trials, in battle and in leadership. The council still questions, but your actions have spoken louder than any debate. Yet one choice remains, the final decision of this right. Marcus's jaw tightened. He had survived impossible physical and mental challenges. He had led alien soldiers into battle and protected countless lives. Now the final test was not one of skill or courage, it was, Trust, Your Majesty, he said carefully. Whatever the final challenge is, I am ready. The Emperor's eyes softened slightly. This is not a test of strength, but of allegiance. Humanity stands at a crossroads in this galaxy. Other species watch you, your actions, and now your union with the Tyrval Princess. The choice you make will echo for generations. Will you align yourself fully with the Empire, or return to your people as a celebrated envoy? Marcus paused. He thought of Earth, the blue planet still young in the stars, full of people who would never imagine a human standing here in the heart of an ancient alien empire. He thought of Alira, who had seen something in him that not even the Emperor could deny. I will stay, he said finally. I will stand with the Tyrval Empire, not to dominate but to unite. Humans are small in number, but we have courage and we have will. That is our strength. I will bring humanity not to kneel, but to walk beside the Empire as equals. The Emperor's eyes narrowed, then slowly, almost imperceptibly, he inclined his head. The Empress's lips curved into a faint smile. The council murmured. Surprise, disbelief, and slowly approval spread through the hall. Alira stepped forward, her eyes shining. Then the rite is complete, she said, voice clear and steady. Marcus Hale, you have chosen honor, courage, and unity. And in doing so, you have chosen me. The room fell silent. The Emperor looked at his daughter, then at Marcus. For the first time, he seemed to consider the human not as a primitive outsider, but as a symbol, a bridge between two worlds. You have forced us to reconsider what we know, the Emperor said slowly. Humans, you have proven that even the youngest species can teach the oldest empire lessons in courage, ingenuity, and loyalty. If you are willing, and if my daughter's choice stands, then humanity may have a place at our side. Marcus felt a rush of relief and pride. He bowed deeply. I will not fail, Your Majesty. I will honor both Earth and the Tyrval Empire. Alira walked to him, her hand extended. He took it, feeling the warmth of her touch. In that simple gesture, centuries of doubt and tradition began to crumble. The princess's choice was clear, and the human had met every challenge. Outside the council hall, the city erupted in celebration. Citizens waved banners and cheered for the human who had changed their galaxy. Nobles who had once mocked him now nodded in grudging respect. some even bowing slightly as Marcus passed. The Emperor and Empress observed the celebrations from the balcony. Perhaps, the Empress said quietly, the galaxy needed to see that courage and determination are not bound by birth or species. Perhaps, the Emperor replied, and perhaps my daughter has chosen wisely. Humans are strange creatures, but there is something admirable in their simplicity and stubbornness. Inside, Marcus and Alira walked through the palace corridors together. The air was light with a sense of victory, but also heavy with responsibility. The Empire had accepted a human as one of its own, a symbolic gesture, but one that would require constant vigilance to maintain. Do you ever regret choosing me? Marcus asked quietly. Alira laughed softly, a musical sound that echoed through the empty hall. Not once. You are different from any Tirval I have ever met. You do not follow tradition blindly. You act with heart, and that is rare, Marcus smiled. I suppose we humans have to prove ourselves at every step. We're never born into power or privilege. No, Alira agreed. But that is why you are stronger than many who have centuries of training. You fight because you must, and that makes all the difference. He looked at her, realizing how much this alliance, this choice, meant. Not just for them, but for humanity, for the Empire, and for the galaxy as a whole. Then let's make sure we don't fail, he said. We have a galaxy to show. Alira nodded, and for the first time Marcus saw genuine warmth in her eyes, pride, admiration, and perhaps affection. The following days were filled with preparations for the formal announcement. Marcus trained alongside Tirval soldiers, learning their ways while teaching them human tactics. The soldiers began to respect him not just as a commander, but as a human who had proven the value of adaptability, quick thinking, and courage. When the day came to announce the union formally, the entire Empire watched. The Emperor spoke from the throne, his voice carrying across the palace city. Citizens of Tirval, he said, today we witness a union not only of two individuals but of two worlds. Princess Alira has chosen a human, Marcus Hale, as her partner. In doing so, she has shown courage, wisdom, and foresight. Marcus has proven himself through trials, leadership, and action. From this day forward, humanity shall walk alongside the Tirval Empire as equals. Cheers erupted, louder than Marcus had ever heard. People waved flags and banners. Soldiers saluted. Nobles who had opposed him quietly acknowledged his strength. The galaxy was watching, and humans at last had earned a seat at the table. Alira joined him at the center of the hall. Do you feel the weight of this? She asked. Marcus shook his head. I feel responsibility, yes, but I also feel hope, not just for me, not just for you, but for everyone back on Earth. We've taken the first real step into the stars, and it feels right. She smiled, taking his hand in both of hers. Then we walk forward together, humans and Tirval side by side. Marcus looked around at the cheering crowd, the noble observers, and the vast expanse of the city outside. He felt a surge of pride. Humanity had been underestimated, doubted, and dismissed. Yet here he stood, a human among gods, respected, acknowledged, and ready to lead. Let's make history, he said softly. Yes, Alira replied. Together. That night the palace was quiet again. The celebrations continued, but Marcus and Alira walked along the high balcony overlooking the city. Stars twinkled above, mirrored by the lights below. You changed everything, she said quietly. Marcus looked at her, then at the stars. Not just me. Humanity is small in the galaxy, but we have heart. That's what matters, Alira nodded. I have watched countless heirs, warriors, and generals. None of them stood out like you. You reminded us what it means to be alive, to fight, and to choose courage over fear. Marcus smiled faintly. I guess humans aren't supposed to be ordinary. We survive, we fight, and sometimes we inspire. Her hand found his again, fingers entwining. And you have inspired more than you know. The city below was alive with celebration, but for Marcus the real victory was this: trust, respect, and the chance to walk beside someone who believed in him. Humanity had taken a step into the stars, and he had led the way. He turned to Alira. We've got a galaxy to explore, a future to build, and a story to tell. She smiled, her eyes reflecting the starlight. Then let us begin. Marcus Hale had arrived as a simple human, underestimated and out of place in an alien empire. But through courage, wit, and unyielding determination, he had survived impossible trials, led alien soldiers, and earned the respect of a galaxy. And as the first human to be chosen by the Tirval Heiress, he knew one truth. The galaxy had underestimated humanity for far too long. From this day forward, humans would walk among the stars not as guests, but as equals, capable, brave, and remarkable.